Drake recently released his For All the Dogs album, and people have been critiquing it, sharing a lot of the same opinions that I've been having for several years about Drake, his music, the lyrical quality, and the content. The main question people have is that if Drake is for all the dogs, does that mean that he's not for all the girls anymore? I'm really glad that this Drake conversation is happening, because I feel like Nicki is usually the person that people look at with such a critical eye, which is why I spend so much time talking about her. But I think Drake, arguably her male counterpart, is equally as complex, and I think also worthwhile having that critical discussion about him. The issue with his lyrical content and his maturity is really related and centered around his attitudes towards women and sort of how he speaks about women and speaks to women in the album, and the general tone of his lyrics recently. So Drake used to be for all the girls. Now it seems like he's for all the dogs. And I want to know what changed. Hi, if you don't know me already, my name is B. I am a lawyer, an artist, and a hip-hop intellectual. On this channel, I break down hip-hop and I do deep dives into the culture, music, and topics that I don't think is discussed enough. So if you want to stick around and subscribe and hear more of my thoughts, then keep watching this video. So I've got my notes here, and the first notes I've got is rap your age, not your shoe size. So a lot of people who listened to the album, including Joe Budden when he did his critical review of it, was that they felt like Drake is rapping at the level of and alongside rappers in their early 20s. And that's sort of where the lyrical subject matter is staying. It's staying around the kinds of stuff that young men in their early 20s would be saying and doing, and how they would be talking about women. But Drake is in his late 30s. People want to hear more from him. And the thing I found interesting about that is that people said really similar things to Nicki when it came to Super Freaky Girl, her smash hit #1 song from 2022. A lot of people were saying, you're nearly 40, why are you still rapping about it can ride it while you should be talking about deeper things. A point I want to make around that is that hip hop is only 50 years old. Drake is now coming up to being nearly 40. Hip hop artists are still figuring out what rapping in your 40s, 50s, and so on even looks like. This is untreaded waters. This is uncharted territory. Drake and Nicki and Wayne, of course, because he's still out and he's still active, but they're really championing rapping and re-peaking and pushing your work and your artistry when you're not a young artist. And I think that makes sense as well, because look at the age a lot of these people were when they debuted. Nicki was nearly 30 when she came out. Drake was mid-20s when he came out. A lot of other rappers were approaching their 30s when they got hot. I get it though, because you are in that special privileged position of being #1, so people want the most from you. But I do think that we need to be a bit fair, that hip hop's still figuring out what 40 plus looks like. So Drake is doing what works. He's making connections, he's networking, he's keeping his music amongst the youthful listener, which is exactly what Nicki's done by collabing with Ice Spice. Not to say that Nicki needed any help in the streets, but it still helps to solidify your name and your music amongst a younger demographic, which is the secret to longevity. And Drake was throwing jabs at Joe Budden in response to him criticizing him on this. And I do think we need to pay attention to the fact that, okay, do Drake and Nicki sometimes sound like they're rapping out of their age bracket? Maybe, but they know what works to keep them hot, and this is keeping them hot. So, I mean, can we really have a problem with that? I don't know. Now, on Drake being for all the girls, or that he used to be for all the girls, I've written down that I always remembered identifying with Drake for the way that he spoke about women in his music. You can see behind me, I've got Take Care and I've got Anniversary by Bryson Tiller. Honestly, I would have had Trap Soul by Bryson up there, but I love Anniversary. It's like a comeback album, so that's why that's up there. But the way these two men, Drake and Bryson, the way they talk about women, I always felt like we're their muses. They're not talking at us, they're talking to us. And he understood, well, they understand the way they write about women, that we're beautiful and we're complicated. We've got a lot going on, but there's beauty in all the madness. It was romantic. And it seems like after Views, he became Six God and everything went down the drain. I got the sense that he definitely wanted to push back against that soft Drake image that he always had at the beginning, and to make himself tougher and one of the guys. But in my opinion, I think that was definitely at the cost of his female fans' comfort, or at the inclusion of his female fans, because it just was quite clear that his priority are men and male listeners. Identifying with an artist and identifying with their music is part of the magic of art, right? The magic is that they can, through their lyrics, you can form an emotional bond, an emotional connection to people's music. When I'm getting ready and I want to feel cute and I want to feel pretty, I can bang on Take Care and listen to that album front to back. I'm not putting on Knife Talk with 21 Savage to get into my pretty girl mode. But at the same time, Drake, like I mentioned with that longevity point, he's going to make music that markets and caters to a wide range of demographics, to a wide range of people. He's changing and he's changed, and soft Drake is no more. And I think the women liked soft Drake. Let's get into the lyrical content though, and let's talk about really, what has he actually been saying that's made women feel alienated? So for me, I think it's the combination of the bars on Her Loss, his joint album with 21 Savage, where he's making Stallion shot references that alluded to being about Megan Thee Stallion, followed by On For All the Dogs. He's got a verse rhyme scheme using the word anti, and anti Rihanna's album Anti. It seemed to allude to Rihanna. And he also has another bar somewhere on the album where he refers to A$AP Rocky. That left a poor taste in people's mouths. That wasn't a good thing for Drake to do. That was not a good move. And it certainly turned a lot of women off. A lot of women were like, I've had enough. This has just been getting worse and worse. Your songs are getting worse and worse. The perspectives and your points of view on women are just like rolls eyes. No accountability, very much one-sided, that kind of thing. And that's such a contrast to the way he was crooning and singing and capturing our hearts. In Take Care, for example, it's a different Drake. It's a different Drake. And those were bold. That was very ballsy to throw out what could be interpreted as disses to Rihanna and to Megan. It's messy. I will say, to give a balanced view, Drake does still support female artists. Sexy Red has been enjoying her time in the spotlight, and part of that has included, a co-sign from Drake. I think Drake brought her out to perform at his tour. I think something else to really pay attention to is that Sexy Red's listenership, so her listeners, are mostly men. So Drake bringing out a Sexy Red, for example, is still catering to his male fans. Obviously, Sexy Red's got female fans, but the point is she's very popular amongst men. So he's further aligning himself with making music for the male hip hop listener in a way. But I wanted to raise that point to say he does do stuff for the girls. It's just a question of when he's in the studio and he's writing his lyrics and he's thinking about his projects, is it the same Drake as before? And I would say no, because I feel like the current Drake really does not want to be associated with the soft image Drake lyrically. And that's the story that we're getting through the raps and the music he's putting out. So in conclusion on this topic, I touched upon this before, but really heavy is the head that wears the crown is what I want to say. Being the GOAT, being the number one, it requires you to be under a lot of scrutiny, and people want more and more and more and more. As Nicki says, when they start talking crazy, that's when I know that they want some more. So Drake is catching a lot of smoke right now, and it's because people want more. It's like, you're Drake. There's no one else we want this from. We want it from you. People wouldn't be asking Drake for this stuff if Drake couldn't deliver this stuff. We're asking Drake because Drake is the best at it. No one does grown and like feeling yourself song like Drake. He always pulls in some of the best R&B artists, you know, male and female. We like that Drake. Bring that Drake. Where is he? But in any event, you know, whatever Drake does, it's gonna chart, it's gonna sell, it's gonna do really well. And I think it's a testament to his status in hip hop that better than everyone else isn't necessarily good enough. When you're at that level, just being better than everybody else isn't going to satiate the demands that people have from you. And Nicki has learned that. It's not just good enough to be better, but we want the best of you. So I hope that, you know, we get more of that from Drake. Though I will say I agree with him, and I think a hiatus would be really effective right now. Even an extended one. I know Drake loves to drop music every year, but I think a hiatus would be really good to not just reconnect, but allow us to reconnect with you, so that when you come back, we're in a better position to receive you and support you. But that's my thoughts. What do you think on Drake? Do you feel like he's lost his favor with his black female fans? Or do you think that none of this is that serious and Drake's always just been the same? I want to know your thoughts. Leave a comment. Make sure that you subscribe. And if you want to see me online, you can follow me everywhere at the B Makosha. And that's on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, etc. So I'll see you guys in my next video.